Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
We're off.
I'm not going to be rushed into having him testify so that he gets trapped into perjury. And when you tell me that, he should testify because he's going to tell the truth and he shouldn't worry, well, that's so silly because it's somebody's version of the truth, not the truth. He didn't have a conversation
Truth is
about...
truth. I don't mean to go like...
No, it isn't truth. Truth isn't truth. The President of the United States says, I didn't...
Truth isn't truth. Mr. Mayor, do you realize what...
No.
This is going to become a bad meme.
Don't do this to me.
Don't do truth isn't truth to me.
Donald Trump says, I didn't talk about Flynn with Comey. Comey says you did talk about it. So tell me what the truth is.
Don McGahn might know.
If you're such a genius, Don McGahn doesn't know. If that's the situation,
okay.
They have two pieces of evidence. Trump says, I didn't tell him, and the other guy says that he did say it. Which is the truth?
Ready? It's Monday. Happy Monday, everybody. All right. What is truth, everybody? What is truth? Philosophy, philosopher, it's hard to say, philosopher Rudy Giuliani. It doesn't flow. There's no flow to philosopher Rudy Giuliani says the truth is impossible to describe. But truth is not truth. That's all we got from him this week. Lies are not lies. Truth is not truth. Up is not up. Down is not down. Left is not left. Right is not right. It's also philosophical. It's also open to interpretation. The universe has many arcs in it, and they all bend through some magical... Leave it to Rudy. Leave it to him on Meet the Press to, here you have the overly agitated Rudy Giuliani blurting out truth isn't the truth. And Chuck Todd actually telling him this is going to become a bad internet meme in like 2 minutes. And of course, 2 minutes later, check my Twitter feed, everybody, at Randi Rhodes. I created a meme. Truth isn't truth. Slavery is freedom. It's just, it's unbelievable. This is insane. And we are at a critical moment, and you can tell because they're so freaking agitated. You can tell that this is a critical moment in the presidency of one reality TV star, Donald J. Trump, because Manafort is on trial. His jury is out deliberating. We found out over the weekend that Michael Cohen is either about to enter into a plea deal. If he has anything interesting to tell Robert Mueller about Russia, then he will be valuable to Robert Mueller in a plea situation, in a cooperation situation. If he doesn't have anything to offer Mueller, then he will, be indicted in the next 2 weeks on $20 million worth of tax and bank fraud. This is his lawyer. This is the president's lawyer, for his personal lawyer for 20-something years over here. Then you got one George Papadopoulos, who was just, they released his sentencing memo. Mueller feels that Papadopoulos has not sufficiently cooperated, and only when confronted with emails and intercepts and phone conversations and the cell phone itself and all this other information about the meeting that he had with one professor named Misfood. Oh my God, the names in this story just are endless. Then, and he lied. He had like 4 different meetings with Mueller's team. He consistently and repeatedly lied to Mueller's team until he was confronted with actual evidence that he had taken $10,000. Did you know this? $10,000 from a foreign government, that he had met with this Professor Misfood, who told him that the Russians have dirt on Hillary Clinton. All this. He just kept lying and lying and lying. And his girlfriend apparently was on the TV so much that the independent counsel didn't want to deal with him. And so now they have a sentencing memo that they've presented to a judge saying he's got to go to jail. Sorry, but Papadopoulos has to go to jail. So you got that going on over here. You got Rudy on the TV being, some sort of a philosophy major now. Truth is not the truth. It's some sort of a ever mutating, impermeable. It's not a definite point in the stars. It's not a definite thing. The fact is not a fact. It's something that's open to interpretation depending on where in the universe you're standing and at what sunlight is shining on it and when, or if it's in a shadow, then of course it could appear as being larger than objects in your mirror. I don't understand what they're doing here, but they are desperate. They're desperate. Omarosa, she was on the TV this weekend. Joy Ann Reid was on vacation, and so Al Sharpton sat in for her. And he had Omarosa on there. And apparently they go way back, way back. They're friends. And so she was very relaxed, and she was talking to him, and she said, and she said it on PBS too. No, it's not just, it's not just that I recorded people with my cell phone or a pen, some recording device. It wasn't just that. I have videos. I have emails. I have text messages. I got everything. And if that man doesn't shut the F up, I'm just going to release them willy-nilly, like the WikiLeaks thing. I mean, and she said Donald Trump is a racist and he wants to start a race war. And I mean, this is just so unbelievable what is going on. So here we are at this critical moment, day 577, everybody, 577. And we're sitting listening to Rudy say, truth is not the truth. And that wasn't the most ridiculous thing he said. Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. All right. Truth isn't the truth. We get it. The Trump administration has never believed in actual truth. They call actual truth alternative facts, right?
You did not answer the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Alternative facts. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered. The one thing he got right was Zeke Miller. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
And then, of course, you had the president himself over here saying, don't believe facts. Facts are, not only fungible, but they're, it's a whole, different universe that we operate in.
Just stick with us. Don't believe the crap you see from these people, the fake news. Just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
Okay, he said that to the VFW, who then denounced him and said, when the president says that the media is the enemy of the people, we don't know exactly why he's here at the VFW. We just got to distance ourselves from that. But I just wonder how far this is going to go before the estate of George Orwell files copyright infringement on this particular admin. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just so unbelievable. The truth isn't the truth. He gave alternative facts. What you're seeing and what you're reading is not really happening. Do you know? I mean, so what are they doing? What is the point? What is the purpose of disinforming and disorienting the American people? I mean, Rudy, is he randomly stepping in turds? Is he, does he step in turds and then track it all over an already smelly White House? I mean, this happens far too often for this administration to be stepping in random turds. It can't be random. Do you know what I mean? It's just so sick, okay? And today he tweeted, Rudy's trying to clean it up. He said, honestly, you can't listen to, if he's going to say the truth is not the truth and then start with honestly, then of course we have to ask the philosophical question, what is honesty? Honesty. It's such a lonely word. Everyone is so untrue. Honesty. He wrote, honestly, my statement was not meant as a pontification on moral theology. No, nobody thinks it was a pontification on moral theology, Rudy. We just think you were yelling stuff like an angry old man yells, "Get off my lawn" on a Sunday because he has nothing else to do. But then he went on, he said, but one referring to the situation where two people make precisely contradictory statements, the classic he said, she said puzzle. And then he got to the summation. Sometimes further inquiry can reveal the truth, other times it doesn't. Oh, what is that? Almond Joy? Sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. Almond Joy's got nuts, Mounds don't. What is this? Sometimes further inquiry can reveal the truth, other times it doesn't. So is it Rudy's job to make sure that it's another time and it doesn't? I don't know. But I will say this. This is the most outrageous thing that he said, okay? Here is well, first of all, Chuck Todd said, well, what if Mueller's only measure is who's been more honest over the years?
We have a credibility gap between the two of them. You got to select one or the other. Now, who do you think Mueller's going to select? One of his best friends, Comey, or the president, who he has been carrying on a completely wild, crazy,
Is it possible,
unorthodox investigation?
Is it possible he makes a conclusion based on who's been more truthful over the years?
It's possible that he'll make the conclusion on which of the two statements is more logical, which of the two statements has more common sense. Yeah, it's possible he can do that.
Oh, he was giving me a headache. I mean, that pregnant pause there, you could almost hear his head saying to him, yell something stupid, Rudy, yell something stupid. Obfuscate, muddy the water. Problem is there's no water. It's all mud, okay? And they sling it. They're just slinging the mud, okay? And incredibly, that was not the dumbest thing that Rudy said on TV yesterday. It was just the most succinctly dumb thing. But he tried to claim, check this out. And, you know, this is so amazing because Friday, I swear to God they listen, Friday, I went through the entire scenario about Donald Trump Jr.'s lies about the Trump Tower meeting. We went through the entire timeline of provable facts about the Trump Tower meeting. What day he was contacted, that when he was contacted, he was told that they wanted to send, that this was part of the Russian government's endorsement of Donald Trump's candidacy, and that they were sending a Russian attorney to Trump Tower to deliver dirt on Hillary Clinton having to do with Bill Browder. That Bill Browder had given millions of dollars to Hillary Clinton, which turned out to be a bull-faced lie, right? Okay. But it was in the Rob Goldstone email. And Trump within minutes responded, if it's what you say it is, I love it. I love it, right? Here's Rudy also on the same show yesterday saying this was the most insane lie.
And of course, any meeting with regard to getting information on your opponent is something any candidate's staff would take. If someone said, I have information about your opponent, you would take that meeting. If it happens to be
from
a
the
person
Russian
with
government?
a Russian... She didn't represent the Russian government.
What?
She's a private citizen. I don't even know if they knew she was Russian at the time.
Oh, my God.
All they had was her name.
They knew she was Russian. I think they knew she was Russian. But
Well, they knew it when they met with her, not when they set up the meeting.
Oh, my God.
You told me, you asked me, did they show an intention to do anything with Russians? Well, all they knew is that a woman with a Russian name wanted to meet with them. They didn't know she was a representative of the Russian government. And indeed, she's not a representative of the Russian government. So this is much ado about nothing.
Here's how it goes. The documents, June 3rd, 2016, email sent to Don Trump Jr. couldn't have been more explicit. Maybe his recollection evolves. Maybe his truth evolves, but the emails don't evolve. Okay? Documents don't evolve. Here's what it said in this email. It said, the documents would incriminate, this is a quote, would incriminate Hillary and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to your father. This is obviously very high level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump. 4 minutes later, Donald Trump says, if it's what you say it is, I love it, especially later in the summer. 4 days later, in a flurry of emails, Goldstone writes back proposing a meeting in New York on Thursday, quote, with a Russian government attorney. Donald Trump agrees and says, Most likely, I will bring along Paul Manafort, campaign boss, and my brother-in-law, Jared Kushner. Oh, my freaking God. And he does it again.
So the only reason they could possibly want the President of the United States is because they're desperate for some kind of charge they can hang their hat on. They don't have collusion or conspiracy, as Brennan pointed out. And
how do you know that? Why, you say this always so definitively. How do you know they don't?
I know they don't because look, this whole McGahn thing leaked from them. If they had some kind of evidence that there was collusion or there was obstruction, don't you think it'd have been leaked? I mean, they leak everything else.
I mean,
they leak everything.
I mean, let's talk with collusion. I mean, the Trump Tower meeting itself is at least evidence of you better investigate. How is it not?
Well, because the meeting was originally for the purpose of getting information about Clinton. The meeting turned into a meeting.
Which in itself, it's attempted collusion. I understand.
No, it's
you
not.
just said it. The meeting was intended to get dirt on Hillary Clinton from a Kremlin lawyer.
No.
That was the intention of the meeting. You just said it.
That was the original intention of the meeting. It turned out to be a meeting about another subject, and it was not pursued at all. And, of course, any meeting with regard to getting information on your opponent is something any candidate's staff would take.
No.
If someone said, I have information about your opponent, you would take that meeting. If it happens to be
from
a
the
person
Russian
with
government?
a Russian... She didn't represent the Russian government.
Oh,
She's
my
a
God.
private citizen. I don't even know if they knew she was Russian at the time. All they had was her name.
They knew she was Russian. I think they knew she was Russian, but
well, they knew it when they met with her, not when they set up the meeting. You told me, you asked me, did they show an intention to do anything with Russians? Well, all they knew is that a woman with a Russian name wanted to meet with them. They didn't know she was a representative of the Russian government, and indeed, she's not a representative of the Russian government. So this is much ado about nothing. Plus, the President of the United States wasn't at that meeting. He didn't know about that meeting. He found out about it after. And by the time he found out about it, it was nothing.
Let me ask you this. Let me just go back to the core.
If this is their case for collusion, good luck, Mueller.
I can't take it. First of all, they had her name. Her name was Natalia Veselnitskaya. You couldn't find a name that's more Russian in a Dostoevsky novel, including the name Dostoevsky. That's number one. Number two, I just read you the email. The email. A Russian government attorney. A Russian government attorney. This is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Make time for the Russian attorney. He's supposed to muddy the waters, I get, but it's all mud now. There is no water. If it's what you say it is, I love it. I'm just surprised that Trump Jr. didn't answer in Russian. But then he would have to switch to his Cyrillic keyboard, and it was probably, crunch time. Plus, on June 7th, Donald Trump stands there and says, next week I'm going to have dirt on Hillary Clinton. No collusion.
Clear for takeoff. Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Oh my God, it's August. Herky Jerky Turkey Blowout Sale. $8 off packs of all natural turkey in August. We've had some really nice discounts over the years, but this one is probably Herky Jerky's best ever, and you don't want to miss it. If you ever had Herky Jerky's all natural turkey jerky, then you know it's not only delicious, but it's one of the healthiest things that you can snack on. So they start with minimally processed turkey, raised without added hormones. They add all natural spices and flavorings, and the result is a one-of-a-kind jerky that tastes just like the bird that you enjoy on Thanksgiving. And since it's 100% fat-free and no preservatives, nitrates, or MSG, you feel good about what you're eating. It's perfect for lunchtime work snacking. It's great after a workout for your protein boost because it's got 11 grams of protein per serving. It's great to take on any outdoor activity, even for your late-night munchies. Herky Jerky Turkey is the real deal. And best of all, you get nearly a pound of turkey in every resealable bag. It lasts much longer than the frilly little 3-ounce bags you see at the gas station. Now, all during the month of August, $8 off every single pack of turkey jerky, no promo code needed. Buy 2 packs or more of anything at herkyjerky.com in the online store. Shipping is free. So stock up now. Take advantage of this incredible offer. $8 off all packs of all natural turkey in August. Visit herkyjerky.com. That's herkyjerky.com.
If you want to continue enjoying great shows like Randi Rhodes, Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman, Leslie Marshall, and so many others on the free mobile Progressive Voices platform, please go to progressivevoices.com and press the donate button right now. Thank you.
Progressive Voices needs your help. Progressive Voices has grown in terms of audience, and that has also significantly increased their bandwidth costs, and they've tried to protect the limited commercial nature of their stream. And to keep up with costs, they need your help. You could say they're sort of victims of their own success with nearly 1 million regular listeners now. The cost of operating the stream has grown beyond their wildest expectations. So if you want to continue enjoying The David Pakman Show on the free mobile Progressive Voices platform, please pitch in now. Go to progressivevoices.com and press the donate button.
Whether you're listening to me, Mark Levine, every Monday and Thursday,
or me, Leslie Marshall, each Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday,
you can hear us from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
Here's a sample of what you'll hear.
We welcome Jenny Wilson. Ms. Wilson is the Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate in the great state of Utah.
You know, you look at the average family in this state, and you know, they don't have elevators for their cars. They don't have multiple million-dollar homes in vacation sites. And I think that that is an important point. We need somebody in the U.S. Senate who's fighting for Utah families, who believes that we need to fix health care, that is going to have an understanding of the challenges of, you know, what we face on the ground here in our communities.
Again, that's Mark Levine every Monday and Thursday.
And Leslie Marshall each Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday.
3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
Hello, I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week.
Last week, the far-right Mercatus study...
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I'm not going to be rushed into having him testify so that he gets trapped into perjury. And when you tell me that, you know, he should testify because he's going to tell the truth and he shouldn't worry, well, that's so silly because it's somebody's version of the truth, not the truth. He didn't have a conversation.
Truth is
about,
truth. I don't mean to go like...
No, it isn't truth. Truth isn't truth. The President of the United States says, I didn't.
Truth isn't truth. Mr. Mayor, do you realize what...
No.
This is going to become a bad meme.
Don't do this to me.
Don't do truth isn't truth to me.
Donald Trump says, I didn't talk about Flynn with Comey. Comey says you did talk about it. So tell me what the truth is.
Okay, I'll tell you what the truth is. The truth is that James Comey took contemporaneous notes. The truth is that James Comey has testified under oath many times, and your client is afraid to testify.
I hope you can let this go. Now, those are his exact words. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you wrote them here and you put them in quotes?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. He did not direct you to let it go.
Not in his words, no.
He did not order you to let it go.
Again, those words are not an order.
No. He said, I hope. Now, like me, you probably did hundreds of cases, maybe thousands of cases, charging people with criminal offenses. And of course, you have knowledge of the thousands of cases out there that where people have been charged. Do you know of any case where a person has been charged for obstruction of justice, or for that matter, any other criminal offense, where they said or thought they hoped for an outcome?
I don't know well enough to answer. And the reason I keep saying his words is I took it as a direction.
Right.
I mean, this is the President of the United States with me alone saying, I hope this. I took it as this is what he wants me to do. Now, I didn't obey that, but that's the way I took it.
Okay, so there's some testimony from James Comey with regard to whether or not the president had a conversation with him that indicated that he wanted Flynn to be let go by the FBI. Okay, now here's Senator Warner asking Comey whether or not he documented every meeting he ever had with the president of the United States and why he felt the need for the first time in his career to document every meeting with the president of the United States, because Comey has never documented any other meetings with any other presidents of the United States. And he has met with George W. Bush. And you know the famous Comey story when Ashcroft was in the hospital and he was, getting a surgery on his pancreas. He was under the influence of pain meds, and W wanted to do warrantless wiretapping. And Ashcroft didn't want to sign off on it, so they waited until Ashcroft was compromised with, oxycodone, or God only knows if he had a morphine drip, right? And so Comey rushed to the hospital and stood in the way of Ashcroft signing off in a altered state on warrantless wiretapping of American citizens, okay? And Comey never felt the need to document any meetings that he had with W, and he never felt the need to document any meetings or any phone calls that he had with Obama. And he served both presidents, and now he's serving Trump. And so he's asked why. Why are you documenting everything?
And let's start with the January 6th meeting in Trump Tower, where you went up with a series of officials to brief the president-elect on the Russia investigation. My understanding is you remained afterwards to brief him on, again, quote, some personally sensitive aspects of the information you relayed. Now, you said after that briefing, you felt compelled to document that conversation, that you actually started documenting it as soon as you got into the car. Now, you've had extensive experience at the Department of Justice and at the FBI. You've worked under presidents of both parties. What was it about that meeting that led you to determine that you needed to start putting down a written record?
A combination of things. I think the circumstances, the subject matter, and the person I was interacting with. Circumstances first, I was alone with the President of the United States, or the President-elect, soon to be President. The subject matter, I was talking about matters that touch on the FBI's core responsibility and that relate to the President-elect personally. And then the nature of the person. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document. That combination of things I'd never experienced before, but it led me to believe I got to write it down, and I got to write it down in a very detailed way.
Oh, my God.
I think that's a very important statement you just made. And my understanding is that then, again, unlike your dealings with presidents of either parties in your past experience, in every subsequent meeting or conversation with this president, you created a written record. Did you feel that you needed to create this written record of these memos because they might need to be relied on at some future date?
Sure. I created records after conversations, and I think I did it after each of our 9 conversations. If I didn't, I did it for nearly all of them, especially the ones that were substantive. I knew that there might come a day when I would need a record of what had happened, not just to defend myself, but to defend the FBI and our integrity as an institution and the independence of our investigative function. That's what made this so difficult. Is it was a combination of circumstances, subject matter, and the particular person.
And so in all your experience, this was the only president that you felt like in every meeting you needed to document, because at some point, using your words, he might put out a non-truthful representation of that meeting. Now,
that's right, Senator. And I, as I said in my written testimony, as FBI director, I interacted with President Obama, and I spoke only twice in 3 years and didn't document it. When I was Deputy Attorney General, I had one one-on-one meeting with President Bush about a very important and difficult national security matter. I didn't write a memo documenting that conversation either. Sent a quick email to my staff to let them know there was something going on. But I didn't feel with President Bush the need to document it in that way.
Okay, so that was Comey documenting after the very first meeting with Donald Trump, January 6th, when he had to brief him about, rumors out there that the Russians might have compromat, and just wanted to give him a heads up that this was floating around the media. That's all he did. And Trump was not surprised. And Trump didn't ask him, where did you get this? Trump didn't say, he just lied to Comey, and Comey got this feeling that he needed to, document it. Here is the dinner on January 27th when the president invites James Comey to the White House by himself.
Let me move to the January 27th dinner, where you said, quote, the president began by asking me whether I wanted to stay on as FBI director. He also indicated that lots of people, again your words, wanted the job. You go on to say that the dinner itself was seemingly an effort to, quote, have you ask him for your job and create some sort of, quote unquote, patronage relationship. The president seems, from my reading of your memo, to be holding your job or your possibility of continuing in your job over your head in a fairly direct way. What was your impression, and what did you mean by this notion of a patronage relationship?
Well, my impression, and again, it's my impression, I could always be wrong, but my common sense told me that what was going on is either he had concluded or someone had told him that you've already asked Comey to stay and you didn't get anything for it. And that the dinner was an effort to build a relationship, in fact, he asked specifically, of loyalty in the context of asking me to stay. And as I said, what was odd about that is we'd already talked twice about it by that point, and he'd said, I very much hope you'll stay. I hope you'll stay. In fact, I just remembered sitting here, a third one, when you've seen the picture of me walking across the Blue Room, and what the president whispered in my ear was, I really look forward to working with you. So after those encounters...
And that was just a few days before you were fired.
Yeah, that was on the Sunday after the inauguration. The next Friday, I have dinner, and the president begins by wanting to talk about my job. And so I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute, 3 times you've already asked me to stay or talked about me staying. My common sense, again, I could be wrong, but my common sense told me what's going on here is he's looking to get something in exchange for granting my request to stay in the job.
Again, we all understand. I was a governor. I had people work for me, but this constant request, and again, quoting you, him saying that he, despite you explaining your independence, he kept coming back to, I need loyalty, I expect loyalty. Had you ever had any of those kind of requests before from anyone else you'd worked for in the government?
No. And what made me uneasy was, I'm, at that point, the director of the FBI. The reason that Congress created a 10-year term is so that the director is not feeling as if they're serving with political loyalty owed to any particular person. The statue of justice has a blindfold on because you're not supposed to be peeking out to see whether your patron is pleased or not with what you're doing. It should be about the facts and the law. That's why I became FBI director, to be in that kind of position. So that's why I was so uneasy.
All right. And then he is asked about a meeting in the Oval Office where Jeff Sessions and others were present. And then they were all asked to leave the room. And Comey was like freaking out that the FBI director had cleared a room and had requested only Comey to stay behind so that there were no witnesses to the conversation that then ensued. Comey testifies that even Jared Kushner knew this was untoward and, not a thing to do. That Sessions was lingering because he knew it wasn't a thing to do. And yet the president does it. And this is when he actually says to Comey, can you let Flynn go?
February 14th, again, it seems a bit strange. You were in a meeting, and your direct superior, the Attorney General, was in that meeting as well. Yet the president asked everyone to leave, including the Attorney General to leave, before he brought up the matter of General Flynn. What was your impression of that type of action? And had you ever seen anything like that before?
No. My impression was something big is about to happen. I need to remember every single word that is spoken. And again, I could be wrong. I'm 56 years old. I've been seen a few things. My sense was the Attorney General knew he shouldn't be leaving, which is why he was lingering. And I don't know Mr. Kushner well, but I think he picked up on the same thing. And so I knew something was about to happen that I needed to pay very close attention to.
And I found it very interesting that in the memo that you wrote after this February 14th pull-aside, you made clear that you wrote that memo in a way that was unclassified. if you affirmatively made the decision to write a memo that was unclassified, was that because you felt at some point the facts of that meeting would have to come clean and come clear and actually be able to be cleared in a way that could be shared with the American people?
Well, I remember thinking this is a very disturbing development, really important to our work. I need to document it and preserve it in a way, and this committee gets this, but sometimes when things are classified, it tangles them up. It's hard to share it within an investigative team. You have to be very careful about how you handle it for good reason. So my thinking was, if I write it in such a way that I don't include anything that would trigger a classification, that'll make it easier for us to discuss within the FBI and the government, and to hold on to it in a way that makes it accessible to us.
So James Comey testifies in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senate Judiciary Committee, and obviously he's got notes that were taken down minutes after leaving the meeting on June 6th, minutes after leaving a dinner on January 27th, January 6th, he briefs. He's called back to the White House. After that, he goes to the White House. It's dinner by himself. He takes notes about that, takes notes about February 14th, Valentine's Day, when he's in the Oval Office with his superior, who's Jeff Sessions, and the whole of it. And he writes these notes in a non-classified way so that they can come out before Rudy Giuliani, a year and a half later, has the audacity to call him a liar.
To speak to Randi, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force.
If you want to continue enjoying great shows like Randi Rhodes, Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman, Leslie Marshall, and so many others on the free mobile Progressive Voices platform, please go to progressivevoices.com and press the donate button right now. Thank you.
Progressive Voices needs your help. Progressive Voices has grown in terms of audience, and that has also significantly increased their bandwidth costs, and they've tried to protect the limited commercial nature of their stream. And to keep up with costs, they need your help. You could say they're sort of victims of their own success. With nearly 1 million regular listeners now, the cost of operating the stream has grown beyond their wildest expectations. So if you want to continue enjoying The David Pakman Show on the free mobile Progressive Voices platform, please pitch in now. Go to progressivevoices.com and press the donate button. I'm David Pakman, host of The David Pakman Show on the Progressive Voices channel. Check out this clip from my show. We've interviewed Fox News moles before. We interviewed Joe Muto on the show. Really good interview that we're linking to on YouTube. We've interviewed Fox News employees before. David Schuster, linking to that interview on YouTube. Excellent interview. And as you might know, I was recently on Fox News along with right-wing radio host Dom Giordano, and we were hosted in a sort of debate by Leland Vittert. And as some of you know, it very quickly became 2 against 1 when I appeared on Fox News. I have now received an email from someone claiming to be a low-level person at the weekend Fox News show that I was on. It's called America's News Headquarters, who says that immediately after I appeared on Fox News, it was said that I would never be invited back after that appearance. This is the email I received, okay? You are going to now have all the information that I have. Hey, David, I'm writing to you from a throwaway email account because I don't want to be identified. I am a very low-level person who is at Fox News during their daytime weekend shows. I was there when you were on. After the appearance, I heard a conversation between producers who say you aren't ever going to be back on Fox News. It wasn't clear why. It wasn't a long conversation, but it was clear they did not like your, so they used the wrong your, I'm including that in the transcript. They didn't like your appearance and said he isn't ever coming back. Keep up the good work. So I have no way of verifying this, right? I have no way to know whether this is true. I know I haven't been invited back, but it's only been a couple of weeks. I don't think it's reasonable to assume I would have already been back. Right. I also don't know why I'd be blacklisted as a result of that appearance. I mean, for people who say, David, you own them, It was a very reasonable, within the bounds of what Fox News expects segment. It's not like I did such damage to the conservative brand. Obviously, I didn't. And I would argue that even Kyle Kulinski, who was on a few months ago, did just as well as I did. He was recently back on, so I don't know who, I don't know the truth of who this person is and if they actually heard this conversation. If true, it's utterly and completely insane.
I think Kyle did well the first time, but he did much better, and I think he would even say this the second time around. So that makes me question whether or not Fox News would have it back on for a third time.
Sure.
I also thought you did really well. And, these Fox News types, the producers, they just want these weak liberals on who will push over and,
I get it.
Credit Trump, engage in the argument, but clearly not perform very well. Well, they want the Juan Williams types.
Yeah, well, I am certainly no Juan Williams, that's for sure. But I was thinking, imagine if they didn't like how white I looked on camera, which of course was because of their lighting. Like that would be absolutely and totally insane. But if anybody has more information, I would love to hear more. And quite frankly, I don't think they even think about me enough to think about blacklisting me. They would just not invite me back, right? Like blacklists exist. I've talked to Mike Papantonio about being blacklisted at certain networks. I've talked to Sam Cedar about blacklists. I just don't think 1 8-minute appearance that I did that wasn't even that remarkable is enough to get them to care enough to blacklist me.
Yeah, and I really wonder, the person who wrote you this email, are they some closeted liberal over there at Fox News?
They said keep up the good work.
Yeah, I mean, why are they working for Fox News then?
We know that Fox News, which I believe does use a lot of union tech people.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Prior to your meeting on January 6th, you discussed with your leadership team whether or not you should be prepared to assure then President-elect Trump that the FBI was not investigating him personally. Now, my understanding is your leadership team agreed with that, but was that a unanimous decision? Was there any debate about that?
It wasn't unanimous. One of the members of the leadership team had a view that although it was technically true, we did not have a counterintelligence file case open on then President-elect Trump. His concern was because we're looking at the potential, again, that's the subject of the investigation, coordination between the campaign and Russia, because it was President-elect Trump's campaign, this person's view was inevitably his behavior, his conduct will fall within the scope of that work. And so he was reluctant to make the statement that I made. I disagreed. I thought it was fair to say what was literally true. There is not a counterintelligence investigation of Mr. Trump. And I decided in the moment to say it, given the nature of our conversation.
At that moment in time, did you ever revisit that as in these subsequent sessions?
With the FBI leadership team? Sure. And the leader who had that view, it didn't change. His view was still that it was probably, although literally true, his concern was it could be misleading because the nature of the investigation was such that it might well touch, obviously it would touch the campaign, and the person at the head of the campaign would be the candidate. And so that was his view throughout.
So Comey is saying that there had already been a counterintelligence investigation open during the campaign. And Trump wanted Comey to go out and say that he wasn't a target. And Comey said, okay, I'll say he's not a target because he's not a target, but obviously he's a subject because he is the head of the Trump campaign, and there was a counterintelligence investigation that was opened during the Trump campaign about getting opposition research, getting dirt from Russia. Now, Rudy Giuliani goes, hey, everybody would take opposition research. And Chuck Todd's question, from a foreign government? Well, yeah, everybody does it. Nobody does it. Nobody does it. Al Gore, I think he was on, Colbert, and we pulled that clip for you a couple weeks ago to show it to you, but I'll just briefly tell you the story. Al Gore was practicing for his debates back in 2000. Okay, in September of 2000 against W. And all of a sudden, he gets a package. And in that package, there's a videotape. And the videotape is of the Bush campaign rehearsing for the debate. And Al Gore's campaign immediately called the FBI, and this tape came from Austin, Texas, not from Russia, not from St. Petersburg, not from a troll farm, not from Moscow, not from after an email by the Russian, intermediary saying, this is support for your father by the Russian government. We're going to send you a Russian government attorney, Natalia Veselnitskaya. She's going to meet you in your office. Okay, I'm going to invite Paul Manafort. I'm going to invite my brother-in-law, Jared Kushner. Okay, no problem. We'll be there at 3 o'clock on June 9th. They tell that to Donald Trump Jr. On June 3rd, on June 6th, they confirm it. On June 7th, Donald Trump goes, I'm going to have dirt on Hillary Clinton next week. I think the media is going to be really interested in it. And then they meet on June 9th. And Rudy is sitting on the TV going, he didn't even know that she was a Russian. All he had was a name. Oh, my God. The lying is endless. Meanwhile, you have Comey contemporaneously documenting all these briefings with Trump. He knows he's a liar. He knows he's going to twist it. Everybody is scared that Trump's going to set up Comey. Comey's scared that Trump's going to set up Comey. That's why he's taking notes. But when Al Gore got this little campaign rehearsal tape of the Bush campaign practicing their debate against Al Gore's campaign immediately called the FBI. Immediately. They called the FBI and they said, we got this tape. We looked at like 3 minutes of it, not even. And we knew the second we saw that it was Bush rehearsing for the debate. We watched 60 to 90 seconds of the video. We saw Bush and Senator at the time from New Hampshire, Judd Gregg, who was playing Al Gore for the purpose of the mock debate to practice for the actual debate. And they said, we knew we weren't supposed to be seeing this. And they called the FBI immediately. Ari Fleischer, who was the spokesperson for the Bush campaign back in the day, he said, we don't know what the Gore campaign has in their possession, but we take it very seriously. We've asked our attorneys to review it and determine what they have. And then they did determine what they had, and they realized that what they had was some clandestinely taped a rehearsal session that George W. Was practicing for the debate with Judd Gregg playing the part of Al Gore. And yes, the Gore campaign should not have had it. And they knew they shouldn't have had it. And so they immediately called the FBI. But somehow we're supposed to believe lying Rudy Giuliani. We're supposed to believe a guy who says he didn't know that this was the Russian government, even though the emails clearly say this is an effort on the part of the Russian government to support your father. And so they're going to send a Russian government attorney who is connected to Yuri Chaika, who is the special prosecutor. He's the chief prosecutor in Russia. She's a friend of Yuri Chaika's, and she's going to come over as a Russian government attorney to give you dirt on Hillary Clinton. But Rudy sits there on the TV and lies and says that somehow we should believe, this man who has lied 5,000 times, literally 5,000 times in 577 days about everything under the sun. We should believe that because it's a he said, she said, even though Comey has testified under oath more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times about this matter, about letting Flynn go. And Rudy says, oh, well, the president's going to testify that that was never said. But remember, the president, tweeted out, you better hope there aren't any tapes. And what was Comey's response to that? Lordy, Lordy, I hope there are tapes. Because it will confirm that he asked me to let Flynn go. It's ridiculous. And then when Sally Yates actually went to the White House counsel, Don McGahn, who's also in the news today, because Don McGahn is cooperating with the special counsel. Don McGahn has spoken to Mueller's team for no less than 3 times, 10 hours each, for a total of 30 hours. Now, remember, Sally Yates went to the White House and told Don McGahn early in this presidency that Michael Flynn was caught on tape, that they had intercepted phone calls between Michael Flynn and Russians saying that sanctions would come off if Trump was elected president. There's text messages that have been subsequently turned over from Flynn's phone at the inaugural, texting, hey, we won, and now the sanctions will come off, and we can go ahead with our nuclear program, the thing that he was going to try and be a partner in or some such crap, right? So all that comes to the attention of the FBI. Sally Yates goes to Don McGahn, who is the White House counsel, not the president's personal attorney. Don McGahn is the counsel for the office of the president, not the president. He protects the office and makes sure that the office breaks no laws, not the president. There is no attorney-client privilege between Don McGahn, no matter what people assert here on the freaking TV, okay? There is no attorney-client privilege between Don McGahn and Donald Trump because Donald Trump is not his client. His client is the office of the presidency. His client is the government. That is who he zealously represents, not Donald Trump. And what is he doing? He's protecting that office from a president, any president. That's what the White House counsel does. That's what John Dean was. For Nixon, he was White House counsel. Okay? Got it? Good. So Don McGahn has been cooperating with Mueller, and Sally Yates went to Don McGahn and said, Michael Flynn is compromised. And for 3 weeks, they let Michael Flynn continue to be the national security advisor for the United States of America in the White House, receiving these classified briefings. And now that Donald Trump, for political reasons, which he's not allowed to do, take away security clearances from lifelong intelligence professionals who have done nothing to violate their oath to protect and defend, nothing at all, but just for political reasons, he's, taking away security clearances. So all of a sudden, you have Don McGahn saying, but it's interesting because they never took away Michael Flynn's security clearance. And Michael Flynn is the person who actually met with Sally Yates. Sally Yates has testified to Mueller, and Don McGahn has testified to Mueller. So believe me, he knows Sally Yates told the truth. He's not going to lie to Mueller about when he was notified that Michael Flynn was compromised and about what the White House did about it. And the answer is nothing for 3 weeks, and never took away Michael Flynn's security clearance. To this minute, Michael Flynn has a security clearance. So believe me, if it comes down to credibility, you're going to believe Sally Yates, Don McGahn, you're going to believe James Comey, or are you going to believe Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump? You see what I mean? This isn't even a close call. The evidence is what they did after they were told various things. And of course, when they were told, when Trump was briefed on January 6th before he was sworn in as president, he was told about Russian interference in the election. James Comey testified he was not surprised about it. He was upset about the fact that they may have compromised. He started screaming, it's not true. I'm a germaphobe. I would never. And of course, we had to point out that urine is sterile because this is what he's talking about is the P tape, right? But there's tapes everywhere. There's tapes. Omarosa's got tapes. She's got videotapes. She's got audio tapes. She's got text messages. She's got email. Michael Cohen, he's got audio tapes. He's got email. He's got text messages. Don McGahn, he's cooperating with Mueller. Sally Yates, she told Don McGahn. You think that Don McGahn is going to risk perjury for this guy? Not a chance, okay? It's so, and Don McGahn, by the way, is not a good guy in all this. Don't think, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. No, Don McGahn is the one who's pushing Kavanaugh through. He's the one that pushed Gorsuch through. And he's the one that nominated his wife's friends who had never tried a case, never conducted a deposition, to go sit on our district courts where all criminal matters are heard. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is a joke. And that Rudy Giuliani has the nerve to show his face in public and say, oh, they had no idea that she was the government. Oh, they had no idea she was Russian. Oh, and Comey is lying and Yates is lying.
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn presents the Green News Report.
The Trump administration has had the knives out for the Endangered Species Act for more than a year.
Administration using California wildfires to undermine and...
Mary had a little the fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
It's Friday, you bastards. We're going to use our best people. I'm going to get the best people. We're going to deliver. We're going to get the best people in the world. We don't want people that are B level, C level, D level. We have to get our absolute best.
Well, I think it's time to see how that's working out. And folks, important to remember, this is not a complete list. We've got Michael Cohen, president's former fixer, yesterday pleading guilty to tax evasion, lying to a bank, and campaign finance violations, which included paying off 2 women to influence an election, directly implicating President Trump in both payments. Now, Paul Manafort, Trump's former campaign chairman, yesterday found guilty of tax fraud, hiding foreign bank accounts, and bank fraud. We've got Michael Flynn, former national security advisor, pled guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with the Russian ambassador. George Papadopoulos, former senior policy advisor to the campaign, pled guilty to lying to the FBI. His conversation with an Australian diplomat about Russian dirt on Hillary Clinton, that's what started the Russian investigation. And folks, these are just the convicts. Then there are the people who've left the administration under, shall we say, a cloud. Former EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, forced out in the wake of 14 ongoing investigations while torching taxpayer money on everything from first-class travel to his $40,000 secure phone booth. Don't we all wish we had one? Tom Price, former HHS secretary, forced out after $300,000 in taxpayer-provided charter flights. Chief strategist Steve Bannon, Breitbart firebrand and architect of Trump's nationalist agenda, fired after undermining the president on several fronts and speaking ill of the family. Omarosa Malnigal Newman, fired by Chief of Staff John Kelly for alleged ethical lapses, which we know about because she took the unprecedented step of secretly recording it inside this White House situation. Now, most Americans do not believe President Trump hires only the best people. In fact, 58% don't believe he hires only the best, according to a Monmouth University poll. Now, with all the White House turmoil and turnover, we shouldn't lose focus on the fact that yesterday's near simultaneous convictions of the president's former campaign chairman and personal lawyer is unprecedented. And the way we know this is to compare the Trump presidency with past administrations. Spoiler alert, it doesn't look too good. For example, within the first 18 months, 4 members of the Trump campaign or administration have been indicted or pled guilty. Over 8 years, the Obama administration had 1, David Petraeus, and it was a misdemeanor. Finally, campaign finance experts say that thanks to Cohen naming him, President Trump could be considered an unindicted co-conspirator in Cohen's crime. The last time a sitting president held that title was Richard Nixon.
Sweet Jesus. Oh, sweet Jesus. Oh, my God. And that was just Wednesday. Oh, happy Friday, you bastards. Happy Friday. Here you go.
He knows where the money is. One of the oldest rules of law enforcement is follow the money, and CFOs are often very, very important witnesses, not because they have done anything wrong, but they know where the money comes in and where it goes out. And the fact that he has now been granted immunity is enormously significant because it means investigators now have a basically complete window into the financial operations of the Trump organization. Now, if there is nothing improper that went on there, Donald Trump has nothing to worry about. But if there is something improper, the feds are very likely going to know about it.
Oh, my God.
They just granted immunity to the chief financial officer, Breaking Bad Heisenberg, or Weisselberg, or Weisselman, whatever. Right? Right? Didn't we do a whole show about him? Didn't we do a whole show? If you're looking for it, it was called Breaking Bad. That was the name of the podcast that day. Oh, my God. So here you've got Flynn, Cohen, Omarosa, George Papadopoulos, You've got Weisselberg or Heisenberg. You've got David Pecker from the National Enquirer getting immunity. Dylan Howard, who's the chief content officer for the Enquirer. How many people are taking, flipping, as the president said? No flipping. Wasn't that Gary Shandling? Yes, the Gary Shandling show. No flipping. It's unbelievable. This is just unbelievable.
Alan Weisselberg, the longtime CFO of the Trump Organization, has also been granted immunity by prosecutors. The Wall Street Journal is citing people familiar with the matter, saying that he was granted immunity by prosecutors for providing information about Cohen into the criminal investigation into these hush money payments, the story that we're talking about here. The Wall Street Journal is also talking about how previously, as they reported, Weisselberg testified before a federal grand jury in this. Now, explain for a second. We know who Alan Weisselberg is. We have it up on the screen here. He is a guy who knows all the dirt, right? This is a guy who knows everything about this organization. You are shaking your head. What do you make of this?
It's a huge news. It depends on what they have granted him immunity to talk about, whether it's just Cohen or other things related to Trump. I talked earlier about how the Trump Organization didn't really have internal boundaries in terms of, the different parts of the empire. And part of that was that Alan Weisselberg was basically the money man for all of it. Right. For Trump's personal expenses, for some campaign expenses, for Trump's charity, for Trump's business. Anytime Donald Trump wanted to write a check, Alan Weisselberg knew about it. Alan Weisselberg signed off on it. So the whole finances of the Trump Organization, which Donald Trump spent a lot of time trying to keep secret from anybody else, both reporters and from regulators, Alan Weisselberg knows all of that. And I don't think he really often played a role in sort of pushing back and saying, hey, don't do that. The law says we can't do this or that. He seems to, from previous testimony we've seen from him, he seems to have just said, yes, I'll do it. You're the boss. I'll do it. For him to say, to take a grant of immunity, it signals that that the feds have somebody who knows everything that happened within Donald Trump's company going back to the early 90s and maybe even before.
Oh, you mean when he first started laundering money for Russia and even before? Wow, that's a long time back.
We do know from this journal reporting, Jeffrey, that he was called to testify before a federal grand jury. Just set this in the context of the week for us. This is a week where Michael Cohen pled guilty, flipped on the president. David Pecker got immunity for on the president, and now this. How significant, Jeff?
Well, what makes it so important is that the investigators are trying to tell the whole story of what went on here. Michael Cohen has admitted that he was participated in illegal campaign finance activities, as he said, at the direction of the president. But what did he do exactly? And who did he do it with? Were other people involved? Certainly Alan Weisselberg, who, as you point out, is mentioned on that tape, is someone who might know something about this. David Pecker received some of this money in his role as chief executive of American Media. That's the other side of the transaction. Are there other transactions? The feds are doing what feds do, which is find someone who did wrongdoing, flip him, and then use him to determine if there's other wrongdoing to be found. It's certainly very unnerving to be on the receiving end of that kind of scrutiny.
And they never would have been on the receiving end of that kind of scrutiny had Donald Trump, A, run an honest business, B, not laundered money for the Russians beginning in the early 90s, C, not be all mobbed up before that when he was building things, D, didn't lie about it during a campaign, E, didn't buy off and pay off women. I mean, it's what a story this is. It's so amazing. It's truly, truly, truly amazing. And the reason why Weisselberg or Heisenberg or the Breaking Bad dude is so key to all this is because he's been working for the Trump Organization, writing checks, laundering money, finding ways to, explain money coming in and anonymous buyers and buildings and management agreements and Felix Sater's salary and all this stuff since Fred Trump was in charge of the Trump Organization. That's how long ago this story starts. And that's why the story seems so complicated. And it really isn't. This is a story about a family who actually had some politicians in their pocket and skirted the law from the very inception of their building housing in Queens. Okay. And then the son, at about 28 years old, Donald Trump, decided he wanted to go into Manhattan. And when he went into Manhattan, he came across, all of the obstacles that any builder in Manhattan would have come across. Except instead of doing it honestly, he decided to cave. He decided he would throw in with the Sammy the Bulls. He would throw in with the John Gottis. He would, if they wanted cement poured, he would pay them. And Weisselberg would, launder the money. You want to see some of, here's a blast from the past. This is what Scotty found. This is amazing. This is an amazing little piece of video. I would urge everyone who is the producer for various news shows tonight, take this piece of tape. This is Sammy the Bull Gravano talking to, this is what, 1997? Talking to Diane Sawyer, who still looks wonderful, I must say. She held up, right? But here is Sammy the Bull Gravano, waxing poetic about every time he looks at the New York skyline. What does he think of every time?
The Presidential Committee's report estimated in 1988 that the mob took in $30 billion a year in tax-free money. The report says the 5 families in New York jack up the prices on construction by 20%. At the center of this, Sammy Gravano, who ran construction and concrete for the Gambino crime family.
I literally marvel at the sight of Manhattan when I see it because I controlled it. I literally controlled Manhattan. When I see it at night, those lights and everything about it, I think of Donald Trump and Tishman and everybody else who couldn't build a building if I didn't want to build it. That got me off. Plus, I made a lot of money with it.
What? The first name that trips off Sammy the Bull Gravano's tongue is Donald Trump. Yeah. Isn't that something? And of course, here's my working theory, is that Donald Trump, did build things back in the day. And he was all mobbed up. Roy Cohn, who was the lawyer for 2 of the 5 families, the heads of the 2, there were 5 crime families, and Roy Cohn was the attorney representing 2 of those 5 families. And that was also Donald Trump's lawyer, Roy Cohn. Where's my Roy Cohn? He said that recently, right? And so when Donald Trump saw in the late 80s, the early 90s, that there was another business to be had away from the construction part of it that was easier. And that was the money laundering from Russia, because Russia was still the Soviet Union in the late 80s. Russia didn't fall till 1991. And all this flight capital, all this money was looking to fly, out of Russia and into safe places. And Donald Trump caught on really early that what he should do is stop building things, because Trump Tower was built, 1987? That's the last thing he built. And just slap his name on crap and sell that crap to anonymous buyers who were looking to get their money out of Russia. And just sell them apartments and then collect management fees on the back end, which he had learned from the mob. And that is what Donald Trump's business has been. The only other time he tried to build something, he tried to get into the most mobbed up business there is in New Jersey, of all places. And that was, the casino business. And he failed miserably, but not before he was fined over and over and over again for money laundering in the casinos.
Clear for takeoff. The Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Oh my God, it's August. Herky Jerky Turkey Blowout Sale. $8 off packs of all natural turkey in August. You know, we've had some really nice discounts over the years, but this one is probably Herky Jerky's best ever, and you don't want to miss it. If you ever had Herky Jerky's all natural turkey jerky, then you know it's not only delicious, but it's one of the healthiest things that you can snack on. So they start with minimally processed turkey, raised without added hormones. They add all natural spices and flavorings, and the result is a one-of-a-kind jerky that tastes just like the bird that you enjoy on Thanksgiving. And since it's 100% fat-free and no preservatives, nitrates, or MSG, you feel good about what you're eating. It's perfect for lunchtime work snacking. It's great after a workout for your protein boost because it's got 11 grams of protein per serving. It's great to take on any outdoor activity, even for your late-night munchies. Herky Jerky Turkey is the real deal. And best of all, you get nearly a pound of turkey in every resealable bag. It lasts much longer than the frilly little 3-ounce bags you see at the gas station. Now, all during the month of August, $8 off every single pack of turkey jerky, no promo code needed. Buy 2 packs or more of anything at herkyjerky.com in the online store. Shipping is free. So stock up now. Take advantage of this incredible offer. $8 off all packs of all natural turkey in August. Visit herkyjerky.com. That's herkyjerky.com.
If you want to continue enjoying great shows like Randi Rhodes, Stephanie Miller, Tom Hartman, Leslie Marshall, and so many others on the free mobile Progressive Voices platform, please go to progressivevoices.com and press the donate button right now. Thank you.
Progressive Voices needs your help. Progressive Voices has grown in terms of audience, and that has also significantly increased their bandwidth costs, and they've tried to protect the limited commercial nature of their stream. And to keep up with costs, they need your help. You could say they're sort of victims of their own success. With nearly 1 million regular listeners now, the cost of operating the stream has grown beyond their wildest expectations. So if you want to continue enjoying The David Pakman Show on the free mobile Progressive Voices platform, please pitch in now. Go to progressivevoices.com and press the donate button.
You're listening to the Progressive Voices Network. And here's a clip from Tara Buster with Tara Devlin.
As long as they can convince you that your problems are because of somebody a few rungs lower on the ladder, then they got you, sucker. But I don't care. You voted for this moron because you think you're getting a tax break. You're an idiot. And you're in bed with the KKK and the white supremacists and David Duke and all the racist, deplorable.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I went back to the beginning, and Donald Trump has said he had 0 contacts with Russia. I think he was off by at least 59 people. And that's how many people I found who were intermediaries between him and Russia going back to the 80s. And it started off, this is really a great intelligence operation. And it started off as a money laundering operation in 1984 when a man with the Russian mafia met with Donald Trump in Trump Towers. It was this newly glitzy building. And he just came in with $6 million and said, I'll buy 5 condos. That's the equivalent of $15 million today. Mm-hmm. That event was typical of at least 1,300 such purchases of Trump properties in that they were all cash and they were bought by anonymous shell companies. And Trump has been doing this for many, many years. And if you look at it, he's completely indebted to Russia. They own him. He was $4 billion in debt at one point, $4 billion after his Atlantic City overexpansion, and the Russian mafia came to his aid.
So that's Craig Unger, and he's got a book called, what is it, Trump... House of Trump, House of Putin. And the reason why I always get confused is because he did another one about Bush called House of Bush, House of Sod. Okay. But this is Craig Unger's new book. And I hopefully he's our guest on Monday, which means news will break in the middle of that interview because, it's just, it's Murphy's Law of me doing interviews. But let's just not go back that far. Okay. We could go back. I mean, Sammy the Bull Gravano. Sitting there telling Diane Sawyer when he looks at the skyline of Manhattan, he thinks about how nothing gets built if he doesn't want it built. And he thinks about Donald Trump and how if he didn't want Donald Trump to have anything, Donald Trump wouldn't have. I mean, come on. And then, of course, Donald Trump got really tired of dealing with the Italian mafia and decided it was much easier to deal with the Russian mafia over in Russia, who were trying to get money out of the Soviet Union when it was still the Soviet Union. And then in 1991, when the Soviet Union fell and this kleptocracy really, just went like speeding off of the rails, the money was really flying out. He's like, oh, this is some gravy train. And the gravy train just continued. It just continued. Let's talk about Felix Sater for a brief moment. Felix Sater, Russian-born, business associate of President Donald Trump. In 2015, there are emails between Michael Cohen and Felix Sater, who are childhood pals, friends, who grew up in Brooklyn together, met when they were like 13 years old, okay? So let's go back to an article that was in the New York Times written by Matt Apuzzo and Maggie Haberman in 2017, reporting on things that they had learned about Felix Sater and 2015. A business associate of President Trump promised in 2015 to engineer a real estate deal with the aid of the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, that he said would help Mr. Trump win the presidency. The associate, Felix Sater, wrote a series of emails to Mr. Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen. So I'm doing this on purpose, okay? This is for all you sick people out there, all you Cult 45 members, all you really psychotic little bitches out there who melt like little snowflakes every time we connect the dots for you. I'm doing this so you can get out while the getting is good, okay? Because you're sitting there saying, Michael Cohen paying off the women has nothing to do with Russia. Where's the collusion? Where? I'm going to show it to you right freaking now by virtue of emails whose recollection does not change. The associate Felix Sater wrote a series of emails to Mr. Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, in which he boasted about his ties to Vladimir Putin. He predicted that building a Trump Tower in Moscow would highlight Mr. Trump's savvy negotiating skills and be a political boon to his candidacy. Here's the email, everybody. Quote, our boy can become president of the USA and we can engineer it. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. I will manage this process. Felix Sater is an FBI informant. He's been an FBI informant. He probably was put in Trump Tower as an associate of Trump's by the FBI all these many years ago because of the Russian money laundering fines that Trump had to pay at the New Jersey casinos over and over again. Trump is fined by FinCEN, a small little group that works out of the Treasury Department, okay, that had fined Donald Trump for laundering money through his casinos. The Taj Mahal broke anti-money laundering rules in the 1990s. It was the preferred spot for Russian mobsters to gamble. Episodes like this are being scrutinized by Mueller, They were scrutinized, or they were tried to be looked into by the House Democrats on the Intel Committee, the Senate Intel Committee. And the Republicans just sit there and they take this oath of omerta because Republicans have become mobs. They become like Russian mafia. The Taj Mahal Casino broke anti-money laundering rules 106 times in its first year and a half of operation in the early 90s, according to a 1998 settlement that Donald Trump entered into. It's a little bit of forgotten history. It's buried in the federal records, although it is available and became available when people filed FOIA requests. The casino repeatedly failed to properly report gamblers who cashed out $10,000 or more on a single day. The casino ended up paying the Treasury Department a $477,000 fine. This is in 1998. And, didn't cop to any liability, but did plead that they violated the Bank Secrecy Act. Who broke this story? CNN broke this story. CNN broke this story way back with a FOIA request. Freedom of Information Act request, okay? They got 417 pages of documents from the Treasury Department under the Freedom of Information Act, and the records included the 1998 settlement, the draft and the final copies of a similar settlement in 2015, and exchanges between the lawyers for Donald Trump and the federal regulators. The 1998 settlement was publicly reported at the time, and the Associated Press noted it was the largest fine and the federal government ever slapped on a casino for violating the Bank Secrecy Act. The thing is that we don't know who the people are because it's been redacted, even under the Freedom of Information Act request, right? You have the identities of the gamblers and the identities of the casino employees involved in these transactions. They're redacted. They're missing. So congressional committees now have asked the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN, this little egg-shaped building, I told you that, operates within the Treasury Department, to provide any information that it has on Trump, his businesses, his top officials, and campaign aides. So here you have like Nunes in the House and Richard Burr in the Senate, not really being all that curious, okay? They don't really want to see the unredacted FinCEN reports, because the unredacted FinCEN reports will include the details of the violations and potentially a whole lot more, and that it would show the whole global network of Trump's finances, and it would be able to determine whether FinCEN data shows connections between Trump associates and Russians. This is where Weisselberg comes in, okay? The statement that was put out back then by the Trump Organization is, the Trump Organization has had no involvement with the Taj Mahal or any other Atlantic City property for over a decade and has no knowledge of the events referred to in your email, okay? Weisselberg was there when all this was going on, and this happened 10 years ago excuse is not going to play when he's under oath. But what it shows, all we got is 2 pages. That's all we got is the settlement agreement in 1998. It's just 2 pages. And all it shows is that the Taj Mahal failed to file currency transaction reports within the time period required. And it states that Trump's casino, which opened in April 1990, made the violations sometime before December 1991. And that's the settlement that settled 106 different times that it violated the Bank Secrecy Act. 106 times. That year, 1991, is when the Taj Mahal was actually in bankruptcy, and then it emerged from bankruptcy after all this Russian money was laundered through the Taj Mahal. And I guess they figure, we'd rather pay the fine And then Trump sold 50% of his stake in the Atlantic City casino. And then the Trump Castle Hotel Casino, according to a 1991 New Jersey gaming enforcement report, describes an incident that happened on December 18th, 1990, the very day that an interest payment was coming due for Trump. He owed, just in interest alone, on the loans that he had, $18.5 million on one interest payment. An attorney named Howard Snyder walked into the Castle Casino with a certified check for $3.35 million drawn from the bank account of Fred C. Trump. Snyder exchanged the check, gave the casino the $3.35 million, and walked away with 670 of the gray gambling chips, which he put into a case that equaled the $3.35 million. And then he just walked out of the casino and never cashed out the chips. That was how Fred Trump was laundering money through the casino to help his son pay just the interest on the loans that he eventually defaulted on. So the regulators, the gambling regulators in New Jersey, they charged Trump's casino under the state's Casino Control Act for not disclosing his father as a financial backer. And he paid a $30,000 civil penalty. You see, this is the thing. When guys like this, big money guys, politicians, when they break the law, they get fined. They get fined. If you break the law, you're going to jail. You're getting cuffed. You're going to plea because you're going to get some sort of a public defender with 90 other cases. Do you know what I'm saying? But these guys, civil penalties, civil fines for breaking money laundering. This is known to Mueller, okay? If I know it, are you telling me that the Republicans who are silent this week, silent, you haven't heard a peep from them? Everyone's getting pleading guilty or entering into plea agreements or signing immunity deals or disclosing, we had a safe, and in the safe we had all the catch and kill stories, and the National Enquirer was actually working as an arm of the Trump campaign to protect Trump and to blast out all these nasty stories, these fake stories on Hillary. I mean, it's just so sick. It's so sick. And Sammy the Bull Gravano, he's saying back in the 90s, if it wasn't for us, Trump couldn't build a building, and he had to do business with us. It got me off. I loved it. I loved holding up, for any building I didn't want built. You had to pay me. You want to build a building? F you, pay me. It's so sick. It's so sick. I can't even tell you. And what does Fox News cover during all of this breaking news? They're trying to say that a horrible murder, a horrific murder of a young girl who would never, ever, ever be a racist. I mean, according to her family is just, again, it's like the Seth Rich family. They used Seth Rich's murder to drown out other news, to make Hillary some sort of a murderer, right? She had Seth Rich killed because the whole idea that, Trump is a crook and that Trump was all mobbed up and that it was Russian mafia and that the government of Russia wrote emails saying that, we support your father and we're going to send a government lawyer to give you dirt on Hillary Clinton, just to drown it out. Oh, no, there was no hacking. There was no hacking. Well, Michael Cohen pled guilty to knowing about, payments and hacking and all these other things, okay? And there's a cooperation agreement that I suspect there is under seal where obviously Felix Sater, Michael Cohen, they have emails. Our boy can become president of the USA and we can engineer it. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. I will manage this process. You think Michael Cohen was the recipient of that email from Felix Sater, who's been cooperating with the FBI for years now. For years. And what Sater was talking about is that he had lined up financing for the Trump Tower deal with a bank called VTB Bank, a Russian bank that was under Sanctions by us. For what? For their invasion of Paul Manafort's Ukraine. Yes, it's all connected. Quote, I will get Putin on this program and we will get Donald elected, Mr. Sater wrote to Michael Cohen. He said, I'm eager to show them video clips of Mr. Trump speaking glowingly about Russia. I will arrange for Putin to praise Mr. Trump's business acumen. If he says we own this election, America's most difficult adversary agreeing that Donald Trump is a good guy to negotiate with, it's a plus.
To speak to Randi, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force.
Whether you're listening to me, Mark Levine, every Monday and Thursday,
or me, Leslie Marshall, each Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday,
you can hear us from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
Here's a sample of what you'll hear. We welcome Jenny Wilson. Ms. Wilson is the Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate in the great state of Utah.
You know, you look at the average family in this state, and, you know, they don't have elevators for their cars. They don't have multiple million-dollar homes in vacation sites. And I think that that is an important point. We need somebody in the U.S. Senate who's fighting for Utah families, who believes that we need to fix health care, that is going to have an understanding of the challenges of, you know, what we face on the ground here in our communities. I can't tell you how many families I have hugged and talked to who have lost a child or a brother or a sister to the opioid crisis. We're one of the top states in the nation who are faced with that horrible, you know, challenge in the community. And it's killing our kids. It's killing our family members. And I think that when you work in local policy, whether it be Cincinnati or, you know, somewhere in California or Salt Lake City, Utah, you start to get it. And to change Congress, I really believe we need a new generation of leaders who has been on the ground and understands. So I think that's a distinct difference between me and Romney is, you know, I've heard the stories. I've worked on these policy solutions. And, you know, I'm living and breathing and getting up every day in a community.
Now, you are the first woman, I want to point out, to sit on the Salt Lake City Council. You're serving your second term. And is it true that you felt the issue of immigration was so strong and too urgent that the discussion about this could not wait until fall, and you want to debate Mitt Romney prior to October 9th? Am I correct?
We were so rocked by, and continue to be, by the horrendous events along the border, the Trump administration's lack of understanding of what they had created even, and showing no sign of compassion or organization in fixing the problem once many stood up and let the world know what was going on. Perhaps he just is taking the people of Utah for granted. I don't know, but no debate. And from what I can see, we're going to have one, which is 1 hour, October 9th. And that's absolutely inadequate for a seat that's been held by one person for 42 years as Utahns, you know, get ready to make a new choice.
What are his issues on immigration, and have they been consistent? Because there's been a lack of consistency from where I sit with almost any issue that Mitt Romney has supported or decided he doesn't support any longer.
You know, I really felt like the Utahns should hear what I have to say, and they should have some clarity. He made a point on the campaign trail when he was running for the Republican nomination a couple months ago. He considers himself to be more hawkish than Trump on immigration. That's concerning. And it's actually, you know, you look at Utahns where, as was mentioned earlier, there are a lot of Mormons and Mormon families in this state. And we're incredibly family-centric in this community. And the idea that we would, you know, tear families apart by bringing in ICE and moving, you know, mom back over the border, that's a really, really difficult thing for most Utahns to comprehend.
Again, that's Mark Levine every Monday and Thursday.
And Leslie Marshall each Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday.
3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Progressive Voices Network.
Hello, I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week. Okay, so why is acid reflux so difficult for pediatricians to diagnose?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
One is, I think a lot of the compromise is just hiding in plain sight. I mean, they bought him, they own him. He would not have had a successful business career. America's not going to elect someone who's $4 billion in debt. In addition, I interviewed General Oleg Collusion, who was head of counterintelligence for the KGB. And when I talked about the Russian mafia, he said, oh, that's just another branch of the KGB. It's part of Russian intelligence. So consider this for a minute. You have all these Russian mobsters who are buying condos from him. Some of them are located in Trump Tower. This goes on and off for over 30 years. I documented it all in my book. And these are links to Russian intelligence in the home of the President of the United States. You know, he would never get a security clearance today.
Let me ask you, though, just on a couple of those points there. So some of this is similar claims that we saw from Jonathan Chait in a New York Magazine article about a month ago, talking about how things he believed had really started in 1987 on that first visit to what was then the USSR for the president, and that he was targeted at the time as a businessman, but also one who Russians saw as having a large ego, being very fragile, obviously, to the way he's portrayed in the press, and they knew he had money problems.
Right.
It seems so simple, though. Even given all of that, was he really targeted back in the 80s as someone who could eventually, I mean, what was it about that profile that tells you this is a person who's going to end up at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?
Right. Well, initially when they targeted him, I don't think they saw him as a presidential candidate. I mean, this was for money laundering, but they gradually groomed him. And you see when he made his first trip to Russia, that was initiated by the Soviets. This is before the fall of the Soviet Union. And the ambassador of the UN, Dubinin, just went up to Trump Tower with his daughter. They invited him to Russia and said, why don't you build the Trump Tower in Moscow? They brought him over there. That trip was booked by Intourist, which was a Soviet tourist agency tied to the KGB. General Kalugin told me he believed Trump had fun with lots of women in 1987 in Russia, and the Soviets had compromise dating back to then. And when Trump came back here, he immediately started to run for president. He took out full-page ads in the New York Times, the Boston Globe, the Washington Post, promoting a foreign policy that is it sounds an awful lot like what the Russians wanted then and want now.
Seriously, dude. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that doesn't get on the TV all that often, and it really does need to be talked about because, as I'm showing you, back in 2015, Felix Sater is writing emails to Michael Cohen saying, you know, we can own this election. Putin, I can get them on board. I will manage this whole thing. Let's do it. Let's do it now. And this is between Michael Cohen and Felix Sater. And now they're both cooperating with, the Mueller investigation. Both of them are. Now you've got, Papadopoulos cooperating, Flynn cooperating, Omarosa is, she's got tapes of weird stuff. You got Weisselberg, who is the CFO and has been going back to Fred Trump of the Trump Organization. He's cooperating. I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember when, Trump's got an assistant? Her name's Rona Graff. I wonder if anybody remembers that they all, there was a period in time, I believe in right after the election, where right after Mueller was actually made special counsel, or could have been before. I can't place it exactly in time. But Rona Graff, the House Intelligence Committee, Nunes, wanted to find out what Rona Graff knew, because they say everything that Donald Trump does, Rona Graff knows. She knows every phone call he's ever gotten. She knows every check he's ever signed. She knows every meeting he's ever had. Nothing happened without Rona Graff knowing about it. Well, when it came time to go interview Rona Graff, the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, and also, what's his name? Conway from Texas, okay? They decided that they would go to New York. Almost everybody else had been brought to Washington and taken behind closed doors. I mean, that's how they did Bannon. That's how they did Stone. That's how they, and basically they only would ask, did you collude with the Russians? No. Okay, thanks. That was it. No follow-up questions, no subpoenaed documents, no, requests for documents of any kind, nothing. But when it came time to talk to Rona Graff, they flew to New York. And they wouldn't allow any of the Democrats on the committee to be in that meeting with Rona Graff. So perhaps because they're telling me in the Michael Cohen charging document, they're telling me there's two executives in the Trump organization that have been given immunity. And we now know that one of them, and I said this yesterday, had to be Weisselman, right? Or Weisselberg, whatever. Heisenberg. Yeah, the Breaking Bad dude. Had to be him. But we don't know who the second one is. So today I was talking to Scotty on the phone. We do a morning rundown on the phone. And I said, well, who's the second person? Who is the second person? And we don't know. But it could be Rona Graff. It could actually be her. Because at first she might have felt protected by the Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee, because Nunes views his job not as that he took an oath to uphold the Constitution and make sure all the laws were faithfully executed. No. He thinks he took an oath to Donald Trump. This is a sick bunch. These Republicans have said nothing through this entire debacle of a week. And the walls are closing in on this president. They say, now even Lindsey Graham is going along with, after the election, you can fire Jeff Sessions. Did you hear that yesterday? After the election, you can fire. But this is the same Lindsey Graham that said there would be holy hell to pay if anybody touched a little white hair on little white, Jeff Sessions' head. On his little white head. Oh, you touch a little white hair on that little white head, and there'll be holy hell to pay by all us little white senators. And now all of a sudden he's going, all right. After the election, you can fire him. What? It's really sick. It's really, really, really sick. But maybe the second person is Rona Graff. Maybe she also got a grant of immunity because Mueller was very interested in her. Do you know? I mean, but all I could tell you is everyone's flipping. Everyone's cooperating. You know why? No one around Donald Trump, not a single human being has clean hands. Not one of these people is honest. Not one of these people didn't break a law. Not one of these people isn't. Because why would you? First of all, to enter into a cooperation agreement with the government means that you are facing some criminal charge. That's what it means. You are facing some criminal charge. And so you're willing to exchange information for your freedom. This is just so crazy. This is just so nuts. I can't even tell you. And by the way, you know who else is going to go? You know who else is going to be implicated? I mean, I've said this forever, and I can't wait because this man needs a garbage can beaten. I mean, it's my favorite revenge scene in all of the Godfather revenge scenes. And there's a million of them. I mean, there's all kinds of revenge that's taken in the Godfather. But my very favorite is Carlo, Connie's husband. It's the garbage can beaten. Rudy Giuliani, James Kallstrom, let's not forget about the New York FBI, okay? Let's not forget about the reporting that was done so exquisitely by Wayne Barrett at the Village Voice before he sadly passed away. Let's not forget about what he was uncovering about what was going on in the New York FBI with Rudy. Rudy is just he's covering his own ass. That's why Rudy is willing to lie for the president. Everybody's sitting there scratching their head on various body. Oh, why is Rudy lying for the president? So obviously on TV. I mean, he's debunked every time he opens his mouth. Why? Because he's covering his own behind. He's the next one to enter into an agreement. He's the next one to need immunity.
James Kallstrom was the head of the FBI office in New York for a number of years, and it was a number of years ago. But for many reasons, he has maintained enormous ties with FBI agents, particularly in the New York area. He had a TV show called The FBI Files that was on air until 2006. And he runs a foundation that is called the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, and it's the Marines that are in any FBI and other federal law enforcement agencies are part of it. So he has a continuing stream of relationships with FBI agents, as does Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani's law firm, at least the one he's been with for many years, he just left it this year, is Bracewell. It was called Bracewell Giuliani, and they represent the FBI Agent Association of 13,000 members, and Rudy has been intimately tied with that organization for a number of years. So they both have legions of FBI relationships. I want to make it clear, I've known a lot of FBI agents in my life, some of the best people I've ever known.
Yeah.
They actually invited me to go to Quantico. I spent 2 days there talking to the public corruption agents all across America. And, you know, I think, you know, Joy Reid just said it's a cell. I called it the fifth column within the FBI, and I certainly don't want to disparage the agency itself or the vast majority of agents, but there's some that I think are clearly violating guidelines, if not laws, in open conversations. I do want to go back, Chris, to your prior discussion, because you really have to parse what Brett Barr said on Fox, and because it's just being constantly misrepresented. He did not cite FBI sources.
That's right. Sources close to the investigation or familiar with the investigation. Yes. That's right.
And yes, and if you look at Devlin Barrett's stories in the Wall Street Journal, that big long one, 22 times in one piece, he cited people familiar with the investigation.
Excellent, important point.
Yes. Now, as an investigative reporter, if I can call somebody an FBI source, I do it. If I can call somebody a law enforcement source, I do it. Makes the story stronger. But when you're citing people familiar with the investigation 22 times, we have no idea who is saying what to who. Could be Rudy.
See, this is Wayne Barrett. Wayne Barrett used to write for the Village Voice. He's a great reporter. He's since passed away. This was during the period of time when Hillary Clinton's email investigation was being leaked. You know, that they had an October surprise, big October. I'm talking to some active agents. Rudy Giuliani. Remember that? And I told you, I'll never let that go till it's resolved. So this was Wayne Barrett's reporting about who was talking to the Wall Street Journal, leaking all this information about, Anthony Weiner's computer and blah, blah. It wasn't an agent, okay? It wasn't an FBI agent. It wasn't Strzok or Page or McCabe or anybody else, because what Wayne Barrett is pointing out there is, as a journalist, if you could say it was an FBI source, you would say it because it makes your story stronger. But he couldn't say that. No one could say that because it wasn't an FBI agent. It was somebody familiar with FBI thinking at the New York FBI field office. And that was probably James Kallstrom or Rudy Giuliani. And it does seem like it was Rudy Giuliani because Rudy Giuliani was on the TV with Martha McCallum and said, we got this big October surprise coming. You'll see. And then Lars Larson's show on October 27th, 2016, going, well, I talked to active agents. And of course, they don't want their names public. So it's Rudy, who is leaking to Devlin Barrett, who writes for the Wall Street Journal, that there was more. And they were sitting on a computer, Anthony Weiner's computer. And they were going to sit on it, and then dump it on Comey with 11 days to go, so that Comey would have to write a report to Congress telling them, okay, I got this computer, I have to look. And of course there was nothing on it, but it was 2 days before the election that he was able to say there was nothing on it, but it was too late. Plus, all this Russian interference on social media, and now we know, and this is why you have David Pecker taking an immunity agreement. The National Enquirer was blasting out horrible things about Hillary Clinton, all untrue. Go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.